Listen, you're not gonna believe this, but this whole thing, this whole story, it all started because of a smell, a perfume, and it wasn't even mine. I swear. If I ain't walk into my own bedroom that one Tuesday afternoon and smell that specific scent, that gardenia Enaud from Joe Malone that my sister loves so much, none of this would have happened. I would have just kept on believing the lies, kept on making myself smaller so everybody else could feel big, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back. For real, let me tell you how it all went down. My whole life, I was the shadow, and my older sister, Jasmine, she was the sun. Growing up in our little house out in Birmingham, you would have thought that girl was made of gold. Everything was always for Jasmine. When she turned 16, my daddy went and co signed on a brand new Toyota Corolla for her, fresh off the lot. Me? I got the keys to my mama's old 98 Civic when I was 17, the one with the busted AC and the tape deck that ate your tapes. Jasmine got a big sweet 16 party at a real venue with a DJ. I got a sheet cake from Walmart in the living room with a few cousins. It was always like that. They'd say stuff like, Latoya, you so quiet and understanding. You don't need all that fuss. Jasmine, she just needs a little more attention. What they was really saying was, you strong enough to handle being second. We need to pour all we got into her. I ain't hate her for it, not really. How can you hate the sun? You just learned to live in the shade. I just knew I had to get out. I put my head down, got my grades, and got a scholarship to a school in Atlanta. I was going to study cosmetic science. I always loved mixing stuff, lotions and oils my grandma taught me about. It was my one thing that was just mine. And Atlanta was my escape. It was the first time in my life I wasn't just Jasmine's little sister. I was Latoya, just Latoya, and I busted my behind. I worked two jobs while I was in school, serving tables and working retail, just so I ain't have to ask my parents for nothing, because I knew it would come with a lecture about how they was stretching things for Jasmine's new apartment. That's where I met Marcus. He came into the restaurant I worked at looking all sharp in a suit, talking about his tech startup. He was smart, ambitious, and he looked at me like I was the only person in the room. He ain't know nothing about Jasmine, nothing about Birmingham. He just saw me. He saw Latoya. And I fell for that man so hard. Chile. We got married 2 years after I graduated. He was doing good. His company was taking off. And for the first time, I felt safe. We had this nice little townhouse in a new development. I had a great job as a product developer for a mid-sized beauty company. Life was good. I was finally out of the shade. And then the sun decided to follow me. Jasmine started coming down from Birmingham to visit. At first, it was just for a weekend here and there. Then it was for a whole week. Then it was, I'm just going to stay on the couch for a little while till I get on my feet. She'd lost another job, she said. My parents called me, of course. Latoya, you got to look out for your sister. You know how she is. You got the space. And Marcus, blessed his heart back then, he was like, of course, baby, she's your family. He ain't have no idea what kind of family I had. Jasmine moved in, and it was like I was 16 all over again. She'd borrow my clothes, the nice stuff I bought with my own money, and they'd come back with a little stain or a tear. She'd eat the special snacks I bought for myself, little things, but then it started getting weird. She was too familiar with Marcus. She'd laugh a little too loud at his jokes. She'd sit next to him on the couch, and her hand would just, linger on his arm for a second too long. One time I came home and she was wearing one of his t-shirts and a pair of my shorts, cooking in my kitchen like she was the lady of the house. I felt this cold dread in my stomach. I tried to talk to Marcus about it. I said, baby, don't you think it's a little strange the way she acts around you? And he flipped it right back on me. He said, Latoya, what is wrong with you? That's your sister. You're just insecure. You've always been jealous of her, haven't you? He said it so calm, so reasonable, that I almost believed him. He made me feel crazy. Here I was, I finally got my own life, my own husband, and he was using my deepest wound against me. The one thing I'd been told my whole life, that I was just the jealous, quiet one in the background. He knew that was my button, and he pushed it, so I shut up. I told myself I was tripping. I was just being paranoid. I tried to be nice, to make it work. I let it go on for 6 more months. 6 months of feeling like a guest in my own home, watching my sister and my husband get closer and closer while I just got quieter and quieter. I was disappearing all over again. I was back in the shade, and this time it was in my own damn house. I remember this one night. It had a long day at work. One of our big projects was falling apart. I came home and the house was quiet. I found a note on the counter from Marcus. Me and Jazz went to grab a bite. Be back later. My heart just sank. I ain't even get a text. I went upstairs to our bedroom to go change, and that's when it hit me. That smell, that strong, floral, expensive smell of her perfume. It was all over our room. On the pillows. It was so strong. You could taste it. And I knew, I just knew it wasn't my imagination. It wasn't me being insecure. My gut had been screaming at me for months and I had been telling it to shut up. I ain't have no proof. Not really, but I didn't need none. I sat on the edge of my bed in my own room, smelling another woman's scent, and I just felt this cold, calm feeling wash over me. The time for being quiet was over. When they got home, laughing and carrying on, I was sitting right there in the living room. I ain't yell, I ain't scream. I just looked at Marcus and I said, I want her out of our house tonight. Jasmine started with the crocodile tears immediately. What did I do? Latoya, why you always treating me like this? And Marcus, he jumped right in to defend her. He started yelling, saying I was being irrational, cruel, all of it. And that's when I looked him dead in his face and said, why does my bedroom smell like her perfume, Marcus? The look on his face, girl. The blood drained right out of him. He knew he was caught. He tried to stumble through some lie about her looking for a sweater in our closet, but it was too late. The dam broke. He finally confessed. He told me he was in love with her, that they'd been together for months, in my house, in my bed. He said it like he was the victim, like it was this tragic romance he couldn't help. He said, I'm sorry, Latoya, but me and Jasmine, we just have a connection you and I never had, a connection. In one sentence, that man and my own sister wiped out my entire life. My marriage, my home, my family, it all just evaporated. I thought, okay, this is the worst it can get. I was wrong, dead wrong. After I packed a bag and went to a hotel, I called my mama crying so hard I could barely speak. I told her what happened, and you know what she said? She said, Latoya, are you sure? You know you can be dramatic. Maybe you misunderstood. She was protecting Jasmine. Even then, a few hours later, my daddy called. He said, your mother told me what's going on, and you need to stop this foolishness. You're going to throw away your marriage over a little crush? Marcus is a good man. You need to go home and apologize. Apologize. They chose her. They chose the lie because her truth was prettier than mine. That night, sitting in that sterile La Quinta Inn off the highway, I realized I was completely and totally alone. They ain't just betray me. They erased me. And I knew right then I couldn't just fix it nicely. They ain't going to stop. I was going to have to move different. I was going to have to save my own damn self. The next few weeks was a blur of pure hell. I'm talking about a level of pain I ain't know a person could feel and still be breathing. Marcus, being the snake he was, moved fast. He had his lawyer draw up divorce papers so quick my head spun. He made it seem like he was doing me a favor, saying he just wanted to make it clean. No drama. Clean for who? What he really did was get his high-powered buckhead lawyer to write up an agreement that basically gave him everything. The house, the savings we had in a joint account, which he'd already emptied, by the way, even the dog. His lawyer argued that since Marcus's startup income paid for most of it, it was all his. I was sitting there with some overworked public defender who was looking at his watch the whole time, and I just signed it. I was so broken, so tired of fighting. I just wanted it to be over. I walked out of that courthouse with a suitcase of clothes and a 5-year-old Toyota Camry to my name. That was it. 5 years of my life gone. I thought, okay, at least I got my job, my career, the one thing that was mine before him. I could rebuild from there. Nah. 2 weeks later, I get called into my boss's office. He looked all uncomfortable, wouldn't even make eye contact with me. He said, Latoya, we're going to have to let you go. There's been a complaint filed about you sharing proprietary company formulas. I'm like, what? I ain't never done nothing like that in my life. I knew. I just knew it was Marcus. He had called my boss, a man he'd met a few times at company holiday parties, and planted this poison. He told him I was unstable from the divorce and that he was worried I might try to sell company secrets to a competitor. And because he was Marcus Hargrove, the successful tech CEO, and I was just me, they believed him. No investigation, no questions. Just a box for my stuff and security walking me to the door. I lost my husband, my home, and my career in less than a month. And the whole time, Jasmine was posting on Instagram pictures of her and Marcus in my house, cooking in my kitchen, smiling. One picture, I'll never forget it, was them on a trip to Miami, a trip Marcus and I was supposed to take for our anniversary. She was wearing a bikini I'd left behind in my closet, posing on the beach with his arm around her. The caption said, "Living the life I deserve with the man who truly sees me." I had to block her. I had to block all of them. My own parents, my aunts, my cousins. They was all liking her pictures, commenting about how happy she looked. They was all celebrating on the ashes of my life. I ended up in this raggedy little apartment complex in a part of town I ain't even know existed. The rent was cheap for a reason. The paint was peeling, the carpet had stains I ain't even want to think about, and the roaches was bold enough to come out in the daytime. I was burning through the little bit of money I had left. I couldn't find a job in my field because Marcus had blackballed me. He told all the local suppliers and recruiters that I was unreliable and a thief. Who's going to hire a cosmetic scientist accused of stealing formulas? I was applying for retail jobs, call center jobs, anything. Nothing. I hit rock bottom for real. I was sitting on the floor of that empty apartment, no furniture, just me and a pile of denial letters. An eviction notice was taped to my front door. My phone was about to get cut off. I ain't eaten in 2 days. I just sat there and cried. I was done. I ain't have no fight left in me. I was just gonna let it all fall apart, and that's when my phone buzzed. It was a text from a number I ain't recognized at first. It was Ms. Carroll, a woman from my old job. She was an older lady, worked in the packaging department, always real quiet, but had the kindest eyes. The text just said, "Heard what happened, baby girl. Don't you let them win. I got something for you. Meet me at the diner near the old office. I ain't have gas money, but I scraped together some change and took the bus." When I saw her, I just broke down. I told her everything, how they took it all. She just listened, nodding her head. She ain't say much. When I was done, she reached into her purse and slid something across the table. It was two $100 bills. I tried to say no, but she put her hand over mine. She said, "Listen to me, Latoya. A long time ago, a man did me dirty too, took everything I had, and I laid down and almost died. But then I realized something. They can take your house, they can take your money, they can even take your good name for a little while, but they can't take what's in this head and what's in these hands. You got a gift, child. I seen the way you work. You know them plants and them oils better than anybody. Don't you let that man and your no good sister take that from you, too. You go home, you buy some groceries, and then you get to work. Let them think they winning. While they out there partying, you be in here building." That conversation with Miss Carroll. Girl, it was like she reached down and pulled my soul back into my body. That $200 felt like a million. It was more than money. It was somebody believing in me. It lit a fire under me so hot, it burned all the tears away. I went to the grocery store, then I went to a little Botanica and bought some shea butter, some cocoa butter, some essential oils. I took my last $50 and filed for an LLC online. I called it Root and Bloom. The name just came to me because I was going to start from my roots, from the stuff my grandma taught me, and I was going to bloom right out of this dirt they tried to bury me in. My life became a crazy routine. I finally got a soul crushing temp job doing data entry from 8 to 5. It was mind numbing, but it paid enough to stop the eviction and keep the lights on. The minute I got home, my real work started. My little kitchen became my lab. I had beakers and hot plates I bought from a science supply store. I spent every single night, sometimes till 3 or 4 in the morning, mixing, testing, perfecting. I was living off ramen noodles and coffee. I lost weight. I had deep, dark circles under my eyes. But I felt more alive than I had in years. I was making something. My first product was a body butter for super sensitive skin like mine. It was all natural, no weird chemicals. It was the product I always wanted to create at my old job, but they said it was too niche. I built a simple little website on Shopify. I used my iPhone to take the pictures of the jars, put them on a nice piece of fabric I found at a thrift store. It looked okay. Not great, but it was something. I started a little Instagram page for Root and Bloom. I'd post about the ingredients, the process. I had maybe 50 followers, mostly old friends from college who felt sorry for me. The first month, I sold 3 jars. Two of them was to Miss Carol. It was hard not to feel discouraged. To see Marcus and Jasmine flying off to Cabo on social media through a friend's phone, and I'd be in my kitchen covered in shea butter, wondering if I was just a fool. I almost quit maybe a dozen times, but then you'd remember Miss Carol's words. You'd remember my mama's voice on the phone, and it'd get back to work. My little breakthrough came from a crazy idea. I spent about $200, which was like a fortune to me then, on supplies and shipping. I made a list of about 25 mid level beauty bloggers and influencers, the ones who had a real engaged audience but wasn't too big to notice a little package. I sent every single one of them a jar of my body butter with a handwritten note. I told them a little bit of my story, not the messy details, but about starting over and making something pure. I ain't asked for nothing in return. I just said, if you like it, I'd love for you to know it exists. I sent them out and heard nothing for 3 weeks. Silence. I thought, well, that was a waste of money I didn't have. I was down to my last $50 again. And then one Thursday night, my phone started going crazy. Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. Shopify notifications. I had 10 orders, then 20, then 50. I was so confused. I went on Instagram and there it was. One of the bloggers, a woman out in California with like 100,000 followers, had posted about my body butter on her stories. She wasn't just showing the jar. She was talking about how it cleared up her eczema, how it smelled amazing, how she loved the story behind the brand. She posted a link. The orders was flooding in. That night, I made over $5,000. I just sat on my kitchen floor and cried. But this time, it was different. It wasn't the end, it was the beginning. 2 years went by like that. 2 years of grinding harder than I ever thought I could. That one night turned into a real business. I moved out of that raggedy apartment and into a small warehouse space. I hired my first employee, then my second. Root and Bloom was getting written up in online magazines. We got picked up by a few small independent beauty stores. I was saving every penny, pouring it all back into the business. I was too busy building my empire to even think about Marcus or Jasmine. They was like ghosts from a whole other life. I was finally standing in my own sun, and it felt so good. I eventually saved enough to do something I'd been dreaming of since I was a little girl with a chemistry set. I opened my own brick and mortar store, a real shop, Root and Bloom. It was in a nice up and coming neighborhood in Atlanta with a big glass window and pretty wood shelves. It was my sanctuary, my victory. The shop was my peace. It smelled like lavender and sandalwood, not somebody else's perfume. The vibe was calm, the light was soft. I had loyal customers who loved the products. I was even starting to date again. I met this man, David, a high school history teacher. He was kind and steady, and he celebrated me. He thought it was amazing that I built this whole thing from scratch. He ain't try to fix me or compete with me. He just walked beside me. For the first time, I was in a relationship that felt like a real partnership. Life was good. It was better than good. It was mine. Then one Tuesday afternoon, the little bell on the shop door jingled. I was in the back checking on a new batch of face oil, and my employee called out, "Latoya, there's someone here to see you." I walked out, wiping my hands on my apron, and my whole body went cold. It was her. It was Jasmine, but chilly. It was like looking at a ghost. The bright, shiny sister I knew was gone. Her hair was a mess. She had these dark, hollow circles under her eyes that my best concealer couldn't touch, and her clothes looked cheap and worn. She was holding a baby carrier, and inside was a fussy looking baby, maybe a few months old. My heart was pounding in my chest, but on the outside, I was perfectly still. I had spent 2 years building this piece, and I wasn't going to let her come in here and wreck it. She started talking, her voice all shaky. "Toya," she said, using my old family nickname like she had any right. "Toya, I need your help." I just stood there behind my counter, the one I picked out and paid for myself, and I ain't say a word. I just looked at her. She took my silence as an invitation to keep talking. She told me this whole sob story. How Marcus had thrown her out, how he found out the baby was not his. Turns out, while she was busy playing a house with my husband, she had a whole other dude on the side. The man who was the baby's father wanted nothing to do with her. So Marcus kicked her to the curb with nothing but the baby and a few trash bags of her stuff. She said she had nowhere to go, no money. She had the nerve, the absolute audacity to stand in the middle of the life I built from the ashes of the one she burned down and ask me for a handout. She actually said, "We're sisters, Toya. You're all I have left." I looked at her and I looked at the baby, and for a second I felt a little pang of something. But then I looked around my beautiful shop at the proof of my own strength, and I remembered sitting on that dirty floor with an eviction notice on my door. I remembered my mama's voice on the phone. I remembered the smell of her perfume on my pillows, and the feeling was gone. I took a deep breath and my voice came out calm and even. I said, "Jasmine, you ain't have a sister when you was sleeping with my husband in my bed. You ain't have a sister when you stood by and let him destroy my career. And you damn sure ain't have a sister when you was posting pictures of your little vacation on my anniversary trip. You made your bed a long time ago. Now go lay in it with mom and dad. They seem to be your biggest fans." Then I looked at my employee and said, "Please show her out." She started screaming and crying, making a whole scene, calling me heartless, selfish. But it was like her words couldn't even touch me. They was just noise. My employee, a sweet girl I hired a year ago, gently but firmly walked her to the door and locked it behind her. The whole shop was quiet. I just stood there for a minute, breathing in the smell of my own success, and I felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, just quiet. It was finally truly over. The fallout after that was something else, but I only heard about it through the grapevine. Marky's perfect life fell apart. The story about what he did to me and what Jasmine did to him got around in his tech circles. His investors started seeing him as a liability, too messy. His company ended up getting bought out for way less than he wanted, and he got pushed out. Last I heard, he was working some mid level manager job somewhere. And my parents, they did what they always did. They took Jasmine in. They drained their retirement savings to pay for her lawyer to fight Marcus for support she wasn't going to get. They sold the house I grew up in to cover her debts. They ended up in a small rental apartment, broke and miserable, tied to the daughter who had ruined them. And me, am good. I'm more than good. My business is thriving. We're in talks with a national clean beauty chain. David and I got engaged last fall. We bought a house with a big backyard for the dog he got me. A life, a real one. Sometimes I think about that day Jasmine walked into my shop. She really thought, after everything, that I was her safety net, that I was still the same quiet, understanding little sister who would just take the hit. She ain't realized that the woman she and Marcus tried to destroy, she don't exist no more. They burned her down. And the woman that grew back from the roots, she don't protect nobody from the consequences of their own actions. I ain't destroy them. I ain't have to. They dug their own graves with their lies and their betrayal. All I did was stop handing them a shovel.
Thank you, Latoya, for sharing this story with us. Chile, that story is a testament, ain't it? I'm telling you, to have your own flesh and blood, your own husband, try to wipe you clean off the map like you was never there. That is a deep and painful kind of hurt. They took her home, her money, her good name, and left her for broke with nothing but a broken heart. But listen, they couldn't take what was in her head and what was in her hands. And that's where her real power was waiting. Now, there is so much wisdom in what we just heard. For real. First thing is this: when your spirit tells you something ain't right, you better believe it. When Latoya smelled that perfume on her own pillows, her gut was screaming the truth long before her mind wanted to accept it. Don't let nobody talk you out of your own intuition. The mistake folks stay making is signing papers and making big decisions when they are grieving. See, when your heart is in a million pieces, your judgment ain't clear. You need time, and you need good counsel, not just somebody who's in a hurry. If I had to break this down for somebody going through something similar, I'd say this: focus on your own garden. Stop looking at what they doing and what they posting online. Latoya started winning when she stopped watching them and started mixing her own oils. Here's a rule to remember: you ain't got to set yourself on fire to keep nobody else warm. Her saying no at the end wasn't about revenge. It was about self-preservation. She ain't have to tear them down. She just had to build herself up so high that their foolishness couldn't reach her no more. And that right there, folks, is a peace that money can't buy. Okay, everyone. If this story gave you something to think about, go ahead and subscribe and hit that thumbs up. It really does help the channel. And listen, let me know in the comments which city or state y'all watching from. I love seeing where our community is. And right now on the screen, you're going to see other videos from the channel. Click one and let's keep going.